Nat Geo WILD's 4th annual Big Cat Week begins this Friday, November 29th. It's a week-long celebration of wild cats, and one of the shows premiering is Cougar versus Wolf, which features big cat wrangler Boone Smith as he pinpoints the most intense conflict zones for these magnificent animals. Take a look at this.
He went right back in. Cat, hey, go get it.
We're a few miles in on this first cat chase.
Go get it. Go get it.
But it has given us a run for our money.
We're cruising, man. We gotta keep moving. This cat responds just like it would to a wolf. There she is. It's going to a safe haven, the ledges.
Like the cougar treed by the wolves and coyote in Yellowstone, this cat is using the terrain to its advantage.
Pretty close to this cat, maybe 7-8 feet, and I feel pretty comfortable doing that because I know lions really well. I've been raised on them my whole life. I know this cat wants nothing to do with me. This is the exact thing we would see if a wolf pack was coming after it.
Wow. Joining me now in studio is big cat wrangler and star of Cougar versus Wolf, Boone Smith. Boone, thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
I'm like kind of baffled, amazed, like really in awe of what you do. Tell us a little bit first about Big Cat Week and your new show, Cougar versus Wolf.
Yeah, Big Cat Week in general is a great way that we have to celebrate big cats. We kind of want to accomplish two things with it. We want people to obviously enjoy the wild out there, the incredible nature of these beasts, and we also want to educate people about conservation, how important it is to take some action now to make sure these big cats are around for a long, long time to come.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, right, is that you're kind of taking us and showing us these creatures in their natural habitat in ways that, you know, perhaps we've never even really seen before.
Yeah, I think Big Cat Week does a great job of diving into the lives of these animals in a way we've never seen. I mean, we've all seen, you know, at different points in time documentaries, but I think each year it brings something new to the table. We have a different aspect or different scenario or situation as nature continues to evolve, and that's what's so great about it.
Okay, well, as well as you and I on set, I'm really excited for you now to introduce us to some of the friends that you've brought today. Okay, first of all, we have 2 African leopard clubs. Tell us about these guys.
These guys, like you said, are African leopard cubs. They're a couple months old here. They're extremely inquisitive. They're some of the coolest cats out on the African savanna. If you think about what these guys have to do, extremely adaptable. They live in an environment where there's prides of lions that can range anywhere from 200 pounds to 500 pounds, packs of hyenas, and these guys are solitary, and so they've had to become very ingenious and adaptive to survive.
And you know, in terms of where they're found, where do you find these creatures normally?
These guys are found in Africa and India. They're found in all sorts of habitats, from swamplands, forests, deserts. Like I say, extremely adaptable. They're a smaller cat as far as the big cats go, but definitely the guys that have some attitude. There's a lot of bang for your buck with these guys, which makes them really, really cool.
And you know, they're really having fun roaming the HuffPost studio at the moment, and you were saying to me they just won't be able to hold still.
Yeah.
Why is that? What is the age? Why can't they just hold
These
still?
guys are just in an age where they are so inquisitive. The world, I mean, if they were in the wild right now in their natural environment, they'd be doing the exact same thing, exploring. You know, it's a curiosity that the world's all, you know, so brand new to them, and they just can't wait to get out into it.
And
so
in terms of, let's kind of get to the nitty-gritty. I don't want to talk about what they eat because, you know, I'm here. But what do they eat in the wild? What's their sort of natural kind of?
Very adaptive. Anything from insects to antelope. So we've got this great range, and that's what, you know, in an area where you've got other big cats that are competitors and things like that. That's why these guys, you know, have to be so adaptive to be able to pull this off.
And I mean, they're gorgeous, and they're so tiny as well, but they grow big, don't they?
They grow big, and they're, as you can see, they're extremely agile. I mean, like, so these guys are kind of in that clumsy puppy stage, but you can see kind of the quick reflexes, the big paws. You still see the claws and the teeth, and you know, they're at a great age right now because they're just starting to develop and explore the world. And I mean, fun time to be a little cat.
It is I guess it must be a fun time to be a little cat. So what have you learned? I mean, you know, one of the things I was talking to you about before is that you get so up close and personal kind of with these animals, which is amazing. And, you know, you were talking about how when you are out in the wild that you are able to kind of tag them and kind of follow their movements. So what have you discovered about these creatures that, you know, was new to you? You
know what, I think every time I go out or think that I've got it figured out, I learn that I don't know near as much as I thought I knew. And that's the great thing about today in research and studies, the Big Cat Week, conservation. we're learning so much with new technologies. You know, I think of cougars right now. We're seeing things. There's an animal we've studied forever and ever, and right now this year I've been on studies and we're learning things we've never even imagined cougars can do. So that's the cool thing about big cats: different habitats, different prey bases, different terrains, and they're always evolving and doing something different. And
I have to ask, I did ask you in the green room, so this is really cheeky of me, but what the hell happened to your lip? No, talk about like terrifying me before I came on set to play with the wild animals. What happened to your lip?
When we were getting to know the cats this morning a little bit, of course, you know, these little guys, everybody wants to come see them for obvious reasons. And
because they're adorable.
Yeah, because they're adorable. And we had an African lion, and when a lot of people came in all of a sudden and spooked him, and he went to go up, and that's kind of a natural instinct, and I just happened to catch a claw. So.
See, even the experts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no fault of his own, freak accident.
But it's actually a really good point, because, you know, we're having so much fun here. It's amazing to have them roaming around. Like, half of the studio is in awe. But, you know, they're wild animals, right?
They're wild animals, yeah. Those instincts are there, whether they've been born into captivity or not. Their instincts are hardwired into them. And we need to keep that in mind when we're out here on things, that, you know, these are wild animals. For as much as we love them and want to handle them, and people might want them as pets to take home, it's not necessarily a good idea or reality all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a show of, like, it's not like the Kim Kardashians. I'm sure they're a bit more scary than the tigers. And speaking of tigers, we have another surprise guest, don't we? Yeah. Who is this? This
is about the most adorable little thing you'll ever see. He's a white phase tiger, which is extremely rare to have the white color phase. It actually doesn't occur in the wild anymore.
Why is that? Is it poaching, or what
if you think about it, this is real. Tigers are meant to be camouflage, and white is really horrible camouflage.
Oh, you poor
And so naturally, it just kind of was bred out of there. But they do occur here and there in captivity. And you know, tigers are one of those great keystone species because they're so important to their environments. Yet this is a species that there's more of these guys in captivity than there are in the wild.
That's kind of, I mean, when you hear something like that, and we were saying you're a real animal person, you always have been, you're a zoologist as well. This isn't just sort of a TV gig for you, this is your career.
Yeah.
Does that kind of thing make you feel really sad, like the fact that, you know, that is the case, that they're more in captivity than in the wild?
You know, it does. It makes me think that, you know, obviously it demonstrates we've done a poor job in some aspects. But then when we look at other animals, leopards and lions, that are kind of heading that way, it makes me think that maybe we can get it together and make sure we're not playing the have to come from behind game like we are with the tigers.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, in terms of the diet, what is the diet for these creatures?
If you're a tiger, you eat anything you want.
Really?
Yeah, you
so
pretty much eat anything.
Fingers are not off limits at the moment.
Yeah, you eat anything you want when you're a tiger.
It seems to be really at ease. I mean, how long did it take you to? I mean, maybe I'm taking my fingers in my hands by stroking back. How long did it take? You know, how long did it take you to get so kind of at ease with them and
you know,
let them just sort of chill with you like this?
You know, I grew up around wild animals and in the outdoors, and really everyone, you know, it's just like the video with the cougar there. Everyone goes, wow, what are you doing going that close? But really there is an element of common sense to it. You know, you learn how to read body language and what they're going to do, and you pay attention to them. And if they say that's enough, that's enough. And you don't push that. You know,
so how do you know when it's enough, though? I mean, have you ever? I mean, this lip kind of thing. I mean, it's kind of, I was saying, it just adds to his like rugged sort of whole appearance, right? Like, but when have you been in a situation where you're like, you know, I should have backed off, or like, have you ever had like a really dicey encounter before?
You know, doing capture work, that happens. It's bound to happen. But again, you know, use a lot of common sense, and when the animal tells me I need to step back and wait, I step back and wait.
And how do you know that, though? Like, how do you know?
They tell you. Well, it's just like in that clip of the cougar on the rock. It told me where that line was, and I respect where that line is.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So in terms of how big this little guy is going to grow, and also, do they have names, or do you refuse to kind of go down the naming route because of, you know, it's like, you don't want to go down that kind of captivity thing?
You know, a lot of times we like to personalize them, and these guys have all been named. You know, for me personally, they all are still wild animals, and so I don't know, I've always just kind of kept it that way. A tiger's a tiger, a lion's a lion, and we need to respect it and know that, even though if we get personal attachment to them. But these guys will get big. You know, Siberian tigers are the biggest tigers in the world. This guy's not a Siberian, but it's a subspecies of, and Siberians can get up, you know, 600 pounds. I mean, they're
That's
big.
hefty.
That's a big cat. It's a cat the size of a cow, you know, to put it in perspective. And that's a lot of beef on the landscape out there.
No kidding. And in terms of, like, you know, you were saying about that's a big cat. I mean, in terms of the biggest cats, I mean, how does that compare to one of the biggest cats in the wild?
The Siberians?
Yeah, the Siberians.
The Siberians are the biggest, hands down the biggest.
That's amazing. Just to think that this is going to get to be so big is kind of quite staggering, really. So in terms of the red tigers as well, I mean, and tigers just in general, what can we be doing, or what should we all be doing to safeguard them and to kind of protect them? Because I can't imagine the idea of these guys becoming extinct is just so sad. I mean, what can we do to protect them?
You know, the idea is obviously tigers aren't in our backyard. But there's so many good research projects out there and groups that are trying to do good positive things for tigers, whether it's, you know, saving habitat, anti-poaching campaigns. Become involved. I mean, you know, the big cat cause and uproar campaigns that National Geographic does, it's easy to get involved and donate and participate. I mean, you don't have to necessarily go out and be the guy running around in the field doing all the research. There's tons of ways to get involved. And, you know, I say check out the websites at National Geographic. They'll list a bunch of ways that people can be involved. And, you know, because we don't want to live in a world where the only place we can see a tiger is the zoo, or worse, live in a world where we don't have tigers.
Yeah, that's true. And what do you think of, actually on that note of zoos, what do you think of zoos in general, to get kind of like controversial a little bit? Do you agree with them? Or, I mean, in terms of like safeguarding these guys and you know, sort of their future, do zoos ever play a helping hand, or is the zoos kind of always...
You know, if we look like snow leopards, for example, there's a great breeding population of snow leopards in New York, in the Bronx Zoo. And so then guys like this, sure, we'd rather see them in the wild to be better, but here's a chance for these guys to be great ambassadors, for us to have some education, learn and understand, and, you know, really fire people up to become involved in some great causes. So there's a purpose behind it, and as long as it's used the right way, I think, you know, like these guys here, they've got a great purpose, and we're glad they can come on here and show us what great animals they are.
We're glad that we're so thankful that you brought them on. But this isn't the only little guy that you've brought, as well as the leopard cubs. Who else do we have?
See you, bud. There you go.
Hi, buddy. So tell us, who do we have here, Boone?
This little guy here is an African lion. His name's Simba. Lions are obviously no secret to folks. I mean, they're the king of the jungle. We all know them. They're the iconic species when we think of the big cats. You know, they live obviously in prides in Africa. Males can reach up to 500 pounds. Prides have a significant impact on the landscape, and that's probably the biggest thing they have going against them right now is loss of habitat, conflict with humans. They've lost so much space. And lions aren't necessarily endangered at this point, but they're getting to that point. Their populations have decreased so much in the last 20 years, it's actually really alarming. And so that's why we want to be involved.
What is that due to mainly? Is that mainly due to kind of like deforestation? Is that due to kind of like their habitats being removed, or is it poaching? I mean, we hear about these stories all the time.
Yeah, I mean, they've lost over 60–70% of their historic range. That means animals that are big, 500 pounds, that need a lot of space to roam, don't have a lot of space to roam anymore.
And, you know, in terms of the size, you were sort of saying that these are some of the biggest animals. I mean, 600 pounds, like how big are we talking in terms of like the size of the studio? As big as Brad, as big as stage manager Brad, or not?
You know, an African male lion at the top of his head, stand up with his head upright, is going to stand about this tall, and his back's going to be about here. I mean, so we're talking big animals.
And so, okay, he's happily chilling out here as well, eating what looks to be kind of like before I would make a Persian kebab, this kind of looks a bit like what it looks like. What is their diet? What is his diet?
Same thing, in the wild, lions, obviously they're meat eaters, they're carnivores, so they eat from, you know, the little antelopes, the gazelles, to the buffalo. You name it, a pride of lions is a pretty efficient machine, and so if they can take it down, they've documented prides of lions killing elephants.
And so how close, when you were talking about them in the wild, how close do you get up to a pride of lions? I mean, like when they're sort of out and they're kind of, really on the hunt for food, how safe is it for you to do what you're doing? And guys, if you haven't seen Boone in action, you've got to check it out. It's in the resource world. All the links are in the resource world to see him in action. Usually he's there with just a stick, I might add. So, I mean, you really don't have much in the way of protection when you're going out and when you're kind of like researching these animals. Like,
yeah, it's knowing when to beware and how to do it. I mean, when they're on the hunt, you don't get out of a vehicle or get in the way of the hunt. You let it happen. Like I say, animals will let you know when you're okay to approach. And obviously with lions, they're big animals, they're fast, they're powerful. They all deserve a great degree of respect. And if you give them that, a lot of times you get that back.
I love it. This guy's having none of it. He's really bored of the meat. He just wants to explore the HuffPost Live studios.
Yeah, there's a lot to do here, a lot that's new.
Yeah,
so.
there are. No, it's true. It's true. And so, in terms of, we were talking about their hunting habits and their feeding habits, but they are epic sleepers, aren't they?
Yeah, lions are probably the most infamous. I mean, 15 to 20, 21 hours a day. If you think about it, these great big cats aren't a whole lot different than your house cat.
Or a teenage boy.
Yeah, or that as well.
Pretty much the same as all my brothers. They all slept about 15 hours.
And in the wild, it's about survival, and that means conserving energy. And so you don't conserve a lot of energy, being on the move all the time. So you take advantage of the moments to lay around and sleep, and you hunt when you've got to hunt, you eat when you can eat.
And so, in terms of when you've been out in the wild and you kind of got up and close with these amazing creatures, is there one cat that you have yet to kind of, yet to capture either on film or kind of get up close to? I mean, is there like a holy grail that you've not quite got there yet? Or?
I've been really fortunate, very fortunate in my career to be able to go to some really incredible places after some amazing animals. We've caught jaguars, snow leopards, been around African lions, leopards. It's, there's definitely some of those more endangered ones that kind of have a special place, and I think maybe for everyone, just because they are endangered and they're so important to ecosystems, and they just are such magnificent animals.
And Boone, I've got a couple of questions that our HuffPost Live community are watching, and obviously they're loving this as much as we are. I have this one from Rona Berry Morin, who says, "What's Boone's opinion on people keeping these animals as pets?" We do hear occasionally those stories of people like kind of keeping wild animals as pets and in their homes. Ian, what do you think about that?
98% of the time that's going to go south. A lot of animals that we deal with in situations like this are rescue animals that have, for whatever reason, can't survive in the wild, and so we take advantage of that opportunity to have them be ambassadors instead of euthanized. But most of the time, wild animals are wild animals, and folks need to recognize that and let them be that. That's where they're meant to be. Yeah,
that's true. And on that kind of note about preserving wild animals, I have another comment here. This is Kathy Sandrew, who says, "I wonder if there is an initiative to preserve sperm and egg samples of these animals for breeding purposes, and if they have bred successfully in captivity." I mean, it kind of seems counter to what you do, which is all about keeping it kind of natural to an extent. I mean, I know you're there with cameras and kind of all this other stuff. What about that idea of it?
You know what I mean? Folks have looked into every possibility out there. I know snow leopards and tigers are probably the most famous ones that they do have breeding programs with the hopes to be able that if the populations became so small and disappeared that they could reintroduce them. So people have actually had that thought, and they've taken some action to make sure if we cross that line, which we hope we never do, that there is a possibility we can come back from it.
I have another comment here. This is kind of, again, I love to bring up the controversial stuff with you, but Tiff Giam says, "I wonder what Boone's thoughts on the fur industry are." I mean, are you, it's winter, it's New York, you see people with fur coats. What do you think about that?
I mean, I get questions like that a lot of time. Obviously, that's kind of hot topics. Everybody has an opinion on them. I think there's some time and place. I've been some places where I've used fur for a lot of good things, and it was awfully, awfully cold. Probably is it a necessity in downtown New York? That's probably a stretch to say you've got to have it, but it is what it is, and I kind of look at it this way: as long as we're making good management decisions based off good sound science for whatever that may be, hunting, fur, conservation, that's what matters. And if we're backing our decisions with science and making good decisions and having protocols accordingly, then we're going to be okay. Whether you're in love with it or not, it really is about science at the end of the day.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by backing it up with science?
Well, a lot of times, one of the things that people talk to me about a lot is hunting. And that's a thing, especially, out west in the United States, even, for example. Hunting's a way of life for a lot of folks. And it doesn't mean that they should be able to hunt as much as they want whenever they want. We've got to base that off science. And there's tons of research that goes into every year for populations and what a population can handle and things like that. And I think those decisions need to be made off science.
That's a good point, the idea of kind of like maybe not being so reactionary. Do you think people get a bit too emotional sometimes about these
We're always emotional. When we talk big cats, wolves, carnivores, predators, things like that, we're always emotional. Everybody is. And I think that's one thing we need to see is we see the extremes all the time, and they are very extreme, that really the best place is probably in the middle ground, and that's what's best for us and best for the species in the long run.
And speaking of emotions, talk about cougar versus wolf very briefly for us. What's the kind of best? What was your best moment of the series? Like, what is the highlight that we have to watch? What episode?
That show for me was just kind of like my own little adventure. It really was a chance to go. I'd been in the Yellowstone ecosystem for a lot of years. I'd seen wolf-cougar dynamics there. I'd seen wolves really dominate the ecosystem as far as the cats and other animals there. And we went to a new place in Montana in the Bitterroots, and it was just to go explore and see what was out there, what was really taking place in a different landscape with different prey species. And we found that there were huge differences. And so I say, so for me, literally work was get up, go out the door, find a cougar track, find a wolf track, and track it all day. And find kills, find the animal, find where they're sleeping, what they're doing. And so, for what I like to do, it was tough to call it work. We learned some really neat things. We learned that in different places, it's not how we'd seen in Yellowstone. The wolves weren't necessarily the dominant predator on the landscape there. And I'm a cat guy myself, so you kind of give a little cheer for that.
I love it. You're Team Cat. This
yeah.
You have like the branding, and you've got like the T-shirts as well.
Yeah, we try and support those.
Nice.
So, yeah. So I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for people to see that there's different dynamics across the landscape that happen between these species. And we kind of went after the Holy Grail. We wanted to see if we could get that direct physical interaction, and we discovered so many things along the way in trying to do that we didn't know. And I think that's what I hope folks can take away of it. These interactions are fluid across the landscape all the time. And we see it once, well, it doesn't mean we're going to see the same thing again. And so that's what's fun about it. Each day out, we were discovering something new.
That's so awesome. I'm so glad that you were here, because you really, I was saying before, you're really kind of infectious about this, like the excitement that you have. Really, everyone in the studio has kind of been really buzzed and buzzing about this as well. But Boone, thank you so much for coming here today. It was just awesome.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And for bringing your friends as well. Thank you for the special guest. That was great. And guys, remember Nat Geo's Wild Big Cat Week starts on Friday, November 29th at 9 o'clock Eastern and Pacific, and Cougar vs. Wolf premieres on Saturday, November 30th at 10 o'clock Eastern and Pacific time. Stick around, plenty more HuffPost Live coming up next.